So what happens when the co-owner of the team violates the WNBA's fan code of conduct and gets her old ass up and hobbles across the freaking floor to harass two 16-year-old girls? And this is a woman, by the way, who, is held up in the media throughout the years as someone who's a champion for women. A champion for the WNBA. Not a single one of those WNBA players would want to play against a man. Not a single one of those team owners or any team owner of any WNBA team in the nation would want to have to play against a team that has a man on it. But maybe if they did have a man on their team, the Storm wouldn't have lost 7 in a row last night.
You leave my daughter alone. Go. She's a minor.
Get out. Get up.
Security.
Garbage. Take the trash out. Take the trash out.
Excuse me, I want to stay with that bitch. Oh no, she just spit in my fucking face. And I have it on fucking camera. That fucking bitch. What? Let it go? You someone can spit in your face? Let it go? You think that's spit in my face? Let it go. There she is. She's going to be famous on TikTok.
The WNBA has issued a disciplinary decision regarding Seattle Storm co-owner Celeste Keaton, and the league deserves acknowledgement for acting with relative speed on this matter. But let us be direct and honest from the very beginning of this conversation. A 5-game home suspension is nowhere near sufficient for what actually occurred, and anyone paying close attention to the full picture of this situation understands that immediately. Let us establish what happened first, because the specific circumstances of this incident deserve to be clearly understood before any disciplinary analysis proceeds. During the Indiana Fever's game against the Seattle Storm, 2 teenage girls were in attendance wearing shirts in support of Sophie Cunningham. They were holding signs thanking Cunningham for speaking up for girls, a reference to the public positions Cunningham has taken throughout this season that have resonated deeply with a significant segment of the fan base. These were not provocateurs. These were young fans expressing genuine appreciation for a player who has meant something to them. Seattle Storm minority co-owner Celeste Keaton allegedly approached these young women and used harsh language toward them. According to multiple witness accounts and reports, the confrontation was severe enough that one of the girls was left in tears. What was supposed to be an exciting night of professional basketball for 2 young fans became an emotional and distressing experience because a person who holds an ownership stake in the organization hosting the event chose to confront them. Let that specific reality sit before anything else enters the conversation. These were teenage girls, young fans, holding signs thanking a player for speaking up for them. And a co-owner of the franchise they were visiting allegedly used harsh language toward them until one of them was in tears. The story spread rapidly across social media once it became public, and the criticism that followed was swift and sustained.
So I'm like, okay. So there's actually video of me talking to security, because I go over and I'm like, I'm responsible for these girls.
She has video proof.
And I go over to security and I'm telling them, and they were nice, right? But they say, oh, that's the co-owner of the team. And I say, okay, and? I'm thinking, why does it matter? You can't do, I don't care if you're the co-owner, Sue Bird, or who it is. It's against the fan rules of conduct. So I'm like, can't we do something about this right now? I mean, security had basically said, if you find this woman, let us know. Well, I found her. Sorry that she happens to be the co-owner of the team, but she cursed out 2 16-year-olds. I'm like, can we do something about it? And then one of the security guards says, well, you could go, there's an office up here. You could go up and talk to him. And the male security guard says, the best course of action is probably just to write a letter to the team. So they're telling me to write a letter to the team, okay?
The Seattle Storm organization issued an official apology, acknowledging the incident and emphasizing that all fans should feel respected and welcome inside their arena. That statement was released under the weight of mounting public pressure, and it represented the minimum acknowledgement of a situation that clearly demanded more. Now the WNBA has issued its formal disciplinary response, a 5-game home suspension for Celeste Keaton. And while the league deserves credit for responding with more speed than it has shown in other situations this season, the penalty itself does not match the severity of what actually occurred. Let us examine why a 5-game home suspension falls short of what this situation demands. Because the gap between the punishment and the conduct is real and significant. Owners of professional sports franchises do not attend every home game. They have financial resources and personal flexibility that allows them to select which games they attend based on their own preferences and schedules. A 5-game home suspension for an owner carries a fundamentally different weight than a 5-game suspension carries for a player or a coach whose competitive contribution and professional livelihood require them to be present. For an owner, this is an inconvenience at best. It is not the kind of consequence that reflects the gravity of confronting teenage fans in your own arena until one of them is crying. The league acted. That is real, and it belongs in the record. The speed of the decision reflects something important, and that something is the role of a specific witness whose account forced the institutional machinery to move when it might not have otherwise. Brandi Cruz of Undivided was present at this game. She witnessed what occurred between Keaton and the 2 teenage girls. She attempted to work through official security channels inside the arena and was effectively told that the individual responsible for the conduct was an owner, which created an implicit barrier to institutional accountability in the moment. Rather than accepting that as the final answer, Cruz brought her first-hand account to her own platform and documented what she had witnessed for the public record.
So at this point, I go over to security again, and there's another male security guard who was perfectly nice to us and knew the situation that had happened. And I go to him and I say, hey, that woman sitting next to Sue Bird is the woman who made the girls cry. And he's like, which one? And he's looking. And I'm like, the one white, whatever. And he says, oh, that's a co-owner of the team. Her name is Celeste Keaton. There she is. The woman on the left is co-owner, and that's her wife, her longtime partner.
Her testimony, carrying the credibility of someone who had been physically present and who had attempted to work through official channels before going public, created the documented pressure that made the league's continued silence untenable. Without Brandi Cruz going public, without her platform and her willingness to tell exactly what she saw and experienced, it is genuinely unclear whether any formal disciplinary response would have materialized at the level and speed that it did. That is a significant statement about the institutional culture of this league and the external pressure required to generate accountability that should be produced organically by the league's own standards and enforcement mechanisms.
Had I acted that way, got up, went and swore at 2 people, let alone children, and made them cry, I would have been ejected and I would have deserved it. But I would never do that because I'm not mentally disturbed and insane. And that wasn't the end of it. And I said last night when I got home, I was so mad, like my motherly instincts had kicked in. And I was like, I will spare no one. Here's 2 girls who decided it would be a good idea to try to trip one of the teen athletes who we were there with. Callie Keeler, who you guys know, who is the girl who had to wrestle a boy unbeknownst to her. Callie Keeler had gotten up to go check on Annalie while she was crying, and these 2 absolute detestable creatures attempted to trip her and then laughed about it. Well, there are their faces. Let's find out who they are. Maybe they're someone of importance too. It is always the people who preach love and inclusion, who think they are morally superior, who are the most detestable, hateful bigots on the planet. If I have learned anything in the last 5 years, I have learned that.
Cruz deserves a direct and specific public apology from the Seattle Storm for what she experienced in attempting to address this situation through official channels and being effectively told the complaint could not be processed because of the ownership status of the person whose conduct was being reported. That is a failure of the arena's accountability infrastructure, and it requires acknowledgement beyond the scope of the suspension issued to Keaton. Now let us address the specific accountability dimensions that the 5-game home suspension does not cover, because there are multiple layers of unresolved responsibility here. Celeste Keaton has not issued a direct, personal, on-camera apology to the 2 teenage girls she confronted. Not a statement released through the organization's communications department. Not an organizational acknowledgement that something inappropriate occurred. A personal apology delivered by Keaton herself, visible on camera, addressed specifically to those young women, acknowledging what she did and the impact her conduct had on their experience. That has not happened. The organizational statement released by the Seattle Storm expressed institutional regret. A disciplinary suspension has now been imposed by the league. Neither of those things constitutes the co-owner herself looking into a camera, taking personal responsibility for confronting teenage fans until one of them was in tears and expressing genuine contrition directly to the people her conduct harmed. The conduct was personal. The accountability needs to match it in kind. There is also a completely separate incident from this same game environment that has not received adequate public attention or institutional response. A Caitlin Clark fan in attendance was reportedly spat on by a Seattle Storm fan in an unprovoked incident. Spat on. A paying customer attending a professional sporting event was subjected to physical conduct from another attendee, and the organizational and institutional response to that specific incident has not been visible, specific, or proportionate to what occurred. The 5-game suspension addresses the co-owner confrontation in a limited way. It addresses the fan assault not at all in any documented public manner. The Seattle Storm organization and the WNBA need to be on camera, specifically addressing what accountability has been applied to the fan who committed the assault, what protocols are being implemented to ensure visiting fans can attend games in that arena without being subjected to physical conduct from other attendees, and what commitment is being made to the broader community of visiting fans about the safety standard they can expect. Those are not unreasonable demands. They are the baseline requirements of any professional sports organization claiming to be committed to a welcoming environment for all fans attending its events. The controversy surrounding these incidents has sparked a wider and legitimate debate about sportsmanship, fan expression, and how young people should be treated at professional sporting events. These teenage girls were expressing appreciation for a player through the most traditional and innocent mechanisms available to sports fans: signs, shirts, attendance. The fact that a co-owner of the organization they were visiting chose to approach and confront them, rather than simply observing their presence, reflects something about the organizational culture that the Seattle Storm has not yet adequately addressed in the public record. The wider debate is real, and it matters beyond this specific incident. Young fans across this league need to understand that they can attend games, express support for their favorite players, and engage with the sport they love without becoming targets for hostility from organizational leadership. The message that the Seattle Storm's disciplinary outcome sends to those young fans, to their parents, and to the broader fan community is going to be evaluated against the full scope of what actually occurred. A 5-game home suspension for an owner who does not attend every home game sends a message about what the cost of that kind of conduct actually is, and that message is not strong enough. The appropriate accountability framework for this situation, stated plainly and completely, requires several elements that the current disciplinary decision does not provide. Celeste Keaton herself needs to deliver a personal, on-camera apology directly addressed to the teenage girls she confronted, with genuine acknowledgement of what she did and the harm it caused. The Seattle Storm's organizational leadership needs to appear on camera, specifically addressing the fan assault incident, providing documentation of what accountability has been applied to the fan responsible, and making explicit commitments about visiting fan safety going forward. A public and direct apology to Brandi Cruz for the failure of arena security infrastructure to respond appropriately when she attempted to report the conduct through official channels is owed and has not been issued. The suspension itself needs to be evaluated for whether it carries genuine deterrent weight or whether it represents the minimum visible response calibrated to manage reputational damage without imposing meaningful consequence on an individual whose ownership position means home game attendance is entirely discretionary. The WNBA's institutional credibility in this moment is being evaluated against everything that has happened this season involving the treatment of fans and players connected to Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham. There is a pattern of responses calibrated to the minimum threshold of visible action rather than to the actual severity of documented conduct. 1-game suspensions for on-court physical incidents, now 5-game home suspensions for co-owner misconduct toward teenage fans. The pattern reflects a league that has not yet demonstrated it will hold misconduct accountable at the level the conduct actually warrants. Those teenage girls attended a basketball game holding signs thanking a player for speaking up for girls. They deserved a welcoming experience. They deserved to feel safe and respected in that arena. They deserved to leave that building having experienced the joy of attending a professional sporting event in a positive environment. Instead, one of them left in tears because a co-owner confronted them. The WNBA's 5-game home suspension tells those girls, and every young fan paying attention to this story, what the institutional price of that experience is. Celeste Keaton personally telling those girls she was wrong and she is sorry would tell them something different and something more important. That apology has not happened. It still needs to. The minimum institutional response has been issued. The minimum is not enough. And the young fans who attended that game in good faith, wearing shirts and holding signs for a player they admire, deserve considerably better than the minimum from every party that bears responsibility for what they experienced.